The Ultimatum. Chapter 1. 72 hours, the holographic display flickered to life in the command center of Terran Station Olympus, casting azure light across Admiral Sarah Chen's weathered features. She'd been expecting this transmission for 3 weeks, ever since the Calaran scout fleet had crossed into the Terran exclusion zone without permission. What she hadn't expected was the arrogance, the alien that materialized. Before her stood nearly 8 feet tall, its chitinous exoskeleton gleaming with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in what her xenolinguistics AI identified as condescending amusement. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern across its angular face, fixed upon her with the casual disdain of a tiger observing an insect. "I am High Executor Jothic of the Calaran Galactic Empire," the creature began, its voice a resonant harmony produced by vocal chambers Chen's briefing files suggested could shatter human eardrums at full volume. The translation matrix rendered it smooth, almost musical. "For 40,000 of your years we have brought order to the stars. 217 species kneel before the throne of eternity. Your species has been evaluated, catalogued, and found adequate." Chen remained perfectly still, hands clasped behind her back, her expression carved from stone. Around her, the command center had gone silent. 63 officers, the best Terran command had to offer, watched the transmission with mounting tension. "You will open your borders," Jothic continued. "You will provide comprehensive data on your military capabilities, economic output, and population centers. You will surrender 30% of your industrial production as tribute, and you will acknowledge the eternal sovereignty of the Calaran Empire over your worlds." The High Executor's bioluminescent pattern shifted to what the AI tagged as magnanimous generosity. "In exchange, we offer you protection from lesser species, access to our trade networks, and the honor of serving the oldest civilization in the galaxy. You have 48 hours to transmit your acceptance." The hologram froze, awaiting her response. Chen let the silence stretch. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Finally, she stepped forward, her boots clicking against the deck plating with parade ground precision. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 300 years of human expansion, of the long night when Earth had nearly died, of the bootstrap wars that had forged humanity into something harder than the void itself. "High Executor Jothic," she began, "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Terran Defense Forces. I speak with the full authority of the Terran Assembly and every human world from Sol to the Rim." She paused, letting the translation matrix do its work. "Your scout fleet violated our borders without authorization. Your survey vessels conducted military reconnaissance of our defensive installations. And now you demand our surrender based on what exactly? The age of your empire? The number of species that lacked the spine to tell you no?" Behind her, someone, probably Lieutenant Morrison, sucked in a sharp breath. "You didn't talk to galactic superpowers like that. You especially didn't talk to 40,000-year-old galactic superpowers like that." Chen's expression didn't change. "Here are humanity's terms, High Executor. You have 72 hours to remove every Calaran vessel from the Terran exclusion zone. Every ship, every probe, every listening post you think we don't know about. 72 hours. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked on the frozen hologram. "After that deadline expires, any Calaran vessel found within our borders will be destroyed. Not disabled, not captured, destroyed, reduced to constituent atoms and scattered across the void. We will not fire warning shots. We will not issue additional ultimatums. We will simply kill you." The command center was so quiet Chen could hear the environmental systems humming. Humanity didn't crawl up from Earth's gravity. Well, to kneel before the first empire that comes knocking. "We don't care how old you are. We don't care how many species you've conquered. We don't care about your protection or your trade networks or your eternal throne." She straightened, her voice dropping to something cold and final. "We care about one thing, High Executor. That in 72 hours there won't be a single Calaran ship left alive in our space. I suggest you use that time wisely." Chen gestured sharply and the transmission terminated. For 3 heartbeats nobody moved. Then Commander James Torres, her second-in-command, cleared his throat. "Admiral, they're going to see that as a declaration of war." "Good," Chen replied, already turning toward the tactical display, because that's exactly what it was. "Morrison, Send the activation codes to all dormant installations. Priority Omega Black. Torres, I want every ship we have battle-ready in 36 hours. And someone get me Director Kenji. It's time to see if 60 years of defense budgets were worth a damn. As her officers scattered to their stations, Chen pulled up the tactical overview of the new Sparta system. 300 billion tons of hidden weapons platforms, 15 asteroid fortresses, their cores hollowed out and packed with enough firepower to crack moons, and in the outer system, drifting in carefully calculated orbits, the kinetic kill weapons they'd spent 3 decades positioning. The Calorans thought they were facing a young species. They thought humanity had 3 centuries of spacefaring experience. They were wrong. Humanity had 3 centuries of preparation. 72 hours, Chen murmured, watching the holographic display track the positions of the Caloran scout fleet. 69 now. Let's see if they're smart enough to run. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, a 1,000-ship armada was already accelerating toward New Sparta. The oldest empire in the galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Some species don't negotiate. They burn. The Gathering Storm Chapter 2, Empire's Fury, the Throne Ship. Eternal Dominion hung in the void like a monument to inevitability. 20 kilometers of bioluminescent hull plating, grown over millennia from the compressed cores of conquered worlds, pulsed with the slow rhythm of an empire that had never known defeat. High Executor Jothic watched the recorded transmission for the 14th time, his 4 eyes narrowing with each repetition. Around him, the War Council stood in rigid silence, 12 of the Empire's most decorated military commanders, representing species that had learned to serve or die. 72 hours, Jothic repeated, his vocal chambers modulating into frequencies that made several council members flinch. This, primate, gives us 72 hours. Fleetmaster Korovic, a Dravasi whose crystalline carapace bore the scars of 400 campaigns, stepped forward. Her species had resisted once 30,000 years ago. The Caloran response had reduced their 16 colony worlds to 8. They'd learned. High Executor, she began carefully. Our xenopsychology division suggests we may have miscalculated human. Miscalculated? Jothic's bioluminescence flared crimson. They are an infant species. 300 years in the void. Their longest-range vessels barely achieve 0.2 light speed. They have 17 worlds, High Executor, 17. The Empire controls 47,000 systems. Yet they showed no fear. Korovic pressed. Their defensive installations are irrelevant. Jothic pulled up a holographic display of the new Sparta system. One heavily fortified system. A choke point, yes, but nothing the Imperial fleet hasn't crushed 1,000 times before. They want to make a stand? Let them. We'll reduce their fortifications to debris, and they'll spend the next century rebuilding while learning to serve. He turned to the assembled commanders, his voice resonating with the certainty of 40 millennia. Assemble Battle Group Omega, 1,000 ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, siege platforms. I want enough firepower to crack the crust of their primary world if necessary. We jump in 71 hours. High Executor, another voice spoke up, Sub-Commander Thelkor, a Ven whose species had earned limited autonomy through exemplary service. If I may, the humans chose their words carefully. After that deadline expires, they're expecting us to come. This could be a trap? Jothic's laughter resonated through the chamber. With what? They have 43 capital ships, Thelkor. 43. We're bringing 1,000. Even if every single human vessel is a technological marvel beyond our projections, which our intelligence assures us they are not, the mathematics are simple. He gestured at the tactical display, where simulations showed 1,000 Imperial warships systematically dismantling human defenses. They have no allies, no secret weapons, no ancient technology. They're humans, a species that discovered faster than light travel by accident, stumbling into our galaxy like children finding their parents' weapons cabinet. His bioluminescence shifted to a predatory violet. We will teach them what 40,000 years of warfare looks like. Korovic bowed her head in submission, but her crystalline eyes glinted with something that might have been doubt. As you command, High Executor. Chapter 3. Ghosts in the Dark 60 Hours Until Deadline. Captain Marcus Webb floated in the observation blister of Installation Theta 7, watching the stars through 3 meters of armored transparency. Behind him, the installation's command center hummed with activity as his crew ran final diagnostics on systems that hadn't been active in 6 decades. "Captain," Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka's voice crackled through his comm. "Reactor 7 is online. That's all 15 reactors at full capacity." "Holy shit, sir, the power readings are off the charts." Webb smiled thinly. Theta 7 didn't look like much from the outside. Just another unremarkable asteroid in New Sparta's belt, indistinguishable from 10,000 others. The Caloran scouts had passed within 50 kilometers of it 3 times, their sensors detecting nothing but nickel, iron, and trace silicates. They hadn't detected the fusion reactors buried 5 kilometers deep, or the particle beam arrays camouflaged as natural crystalline formations, or the missile silos that could fire 300 antimatter-tipped warheads in under 90 seconds. "Good work, Tanaka. How's the targeting array?" "Calibrated and locked. We've got firing solutions on the entire approach vector." A pause. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. Do you really think they're coming?" After what the Admiral told them? Webb considered the question. He'd served under Sarah Chun for 15 years, since the Proxima incident when she'd been a commander and he'd been a fresh-faced lieutenant. He'd seen her bluff 3 times. She'd never bluffed a 4th. "They're coming, Tanaka. They're 40,000 years old. They've conquered 200 worlds. Species don't build empires like that by backing down when someone says no. And if they don't, then we sit here, finish our checklist, and go back to being a very expensive, very secret rock in space." Webb turned from the viewport. "But they will come. Because the one thing empires can't tolerate is defiance. It spreads." He pulled up the tactical overview showing the positions of all 73 hidden installations scattered throughout the New Sparta system. Theta 7 was just one piece of a defensive grid that had cost 12 trillion credits and 60 years of covert construction. The Terran Assembly had started building it during the Bootstrap Wars, when humanity had nearly torn itself apart, fighting over the scraps of the solar system. They'd learned 2 lessons in those dark years. First, that humanity's greatest enemy was itself. And second, that if they ever wanted to survive in a hostile galaxy, they needed to be ready for threats they couldn't yet imagine. So they'd built fortresses, hidden them, waited. And now, after 300 years of expansion, after discovering that the galaxy was full of ancient empires and predatory civilizations, humanity's paranoia was about to pay dividends. "Tanaka," Webb said quietly, "do you know why Admiral Chen gave them 72 hours? "No, sir, because she's not bluffing, and she wants to give them every possible chance to be smart." He pulled up a secondary display showing deep space sensor readings. "But she also knows what every history book in Terran space will tell you. Empires don't run. They crush resistance. They make examples. So this was always going to be a fight. This was always going to be a massacre." Webb's smile was cold. The question was never whether they'd come. It was whether we'd be ready when they did. Chapter 4. The Assembly 48 hours until deadline. The Terran Assembly met in emergency session, the holographic chamber filled with representatives from all 17 human worlds, Earth, Mars, Titan, the Proxima colonies, the Epsilon Eridani settlements, New Sparta itself. President Elena Vasquez stood at the podium, her expression grave. "Admiral Chen has issued an ultimatum to the Calaran Empire. They have 48 hours to withdraw from our space or we will enforce our borders by force." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "The Intelligence Division estimates a 97% probability they will respond with military action." The chamber erupted. 17 worlds, 17 different opinions, all shouting at once. "This is insanity. We can't fight an empire that old. Should have negotiated. Found a diplomatic. 30% tribute is survivable. Total annihilation is not." Vasquez let them vent for 30 seconds, then activated the podium's audio override. The chamber fell silent. "I didn't call this session for debate," she said flatly. "I called it to inform you of the decision that has already been made. By me. By Admiral Chen, and by every director of Terran Command for the last 60 years." She pulled up a holographic display, the complete schematic of New Sparta's defensive grid. Gasps rippled through the chamber as representatives saw for the first time what their tax credits had been building. "This is Installation Theta 7, Vasquez said, highlighting a single point of light, one of 73 identical platforms. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Together, they represent the largest concentration of military force humanity has ever assembled. She zoomed out, showing the full defensive network. 15 asteroid fortresses, 300 kinetic kill platforms, 600 missile batteries, 240 particle beam arrays, and in the outer system, the rods from God, 8,000 relativistic projectiles, already accelerated to 0.95 light speed, held in carefully calculated orbits. Representative Zhao from New Beijing stood, his face pale. How long has this existed? The first installation went online 63 years ago. The last was completed 16 months ago. Vasquez met his eyes. We've spent 12 trillion credits and mobilized the entire defense industrial complex of human space. All for this moment, but why? Zhao demanded. Why provoke them? Why not negotiate? Because negotiation was never an option. A new voice interrupted. Admiral Chen materialized in the holographic chamber, transmitted from Station Olympus. She looked tired, but her eyes burned with cold certainty. Representative Zhao, I've reviewed the Calaran Empire's history. 217 species conquered. 0 negotiated settlements. 0 autonomous vassals. 0 equals. She pulled up a database entry. They don't do diplomacy. They do submission or extermination. Those are the only options they offer. Then we submit. Someone shouted from the back. We survive. No. Chen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. We don't. Because I've also reviewed what submission means to the Calarans. 30% industrial tribute is just the start. Within a generation, they'll control our shipyards, our colonies, our food production. Within 2 generations, they'll be breeding us for labor. Within 3, humanity will be another extinct species that couldn't adapt to imperial rule. Silence. I didn't ask for this fight, Chen continued, but the Calarans brought it to our door. And I will not be the admiral who surrenders human sovereignty without firing a shot. President Vasquez nodded slowly. The vote is a formality at this point, but protocol demands it. All in favor of authorizing Admiral Chen to defend Terran space by any means necessary? Hands rose. Slowly at first, then faster. 16 worlds voted yes, only New Beijing abstained. The motion passes, Vasquez said. Admiral, you have operational authority. Show them what happens when someone tells humanity no. Chen saluted, then vanished from the holographic display. In the silence that followed, Representative Zhao stood again. Madame President, what if we lose? Vasquez looked at him with eyes that had seen the bootstrap wars, that had watched humanity nearly destroy itself before learning to reach for the stars. Then we lose, she said simply, but the galaxy will remember that we fought. And the next species the Calarans threaten will know that empires can bleed. 36 hours until deadline. In the darkness between stars, Battle Group Omega accelerated toward New Sparta. 1,000 ships, 40,000 years of military doctrine, an empire that had never lost, and waiting for them in the Black 73. Installations that didn't officially exist, crewed by men and women who'd spent their entire careers preparing for a battle that wasn't supposed to happen. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Station Olympus, watching the countdown timer tick toward 0. All installations report ready status, Commander Torres said. Defensive grid is online. Kinetic platforms are locked. We're as ready as we're going to be, Admiral. Chen nodded slowly. Then we wait. 36 hours. And if they don't come? Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They'll come. James, empires always do. On the tactical display, 1,000 red icons crept steadily closer to New Sparta's outer boundary. The oldest empire in the galaxy was about to meet humanity's answer, and the void was about to burn.